Hi guys, this is Carrie from Artstitution, and today I am going to teach you step by step how to paint this awesome tribal stallion. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is what I'm going to be using. So I have a little tiny round brush that I'll be using for details, um, and a larger flat brush, and that's going to be for larger sections. And then I have this medium flat brush, and usually I use this medium flat brush to do all my mixing, just because this big one is too big and I end up with no paint left, and this one's just too small that it just doesn't scoop out enough. Now this is my preference. You don't have to do that yourself, so do what makes you feel comfortable. You could use whatever brushes makes you feel comfortable. So for the most part, these are the three that I use. So if you get a color box, you'll be getting these three in there. But again, use what you feel comfortable using. And I have my egg carton filled with my paint. I tend to fill it up way more than I have to, so I don't have to get up and replenish while I'm, recording these videos. So you don't have to put this much in there. And I have my cup of water. I have a paper towel just to wash to dry my brush off, and then I have a paper plate. I also like to have two paper plates just in case. And we're gonna get started. So I have a chicken on my lap right now. So if you hear some weird noises, that's not me. That's my chicken. So she's recovering. So she's sitting in my lap. All right. So what we're gonna do first is we're actually going to mix a gray color. Okay. So we're gonna draw everything out. So we're gonna take that that medium brush, that flat brush, the smaller flat brush, and we're gonna do 3 scoops of white onto our plate like that. Now I'm gonna take a little bit of black. Now, before you do that, I'm not gonna wash my brush because that would take forever if I keep on washing my brush in between. So instead of dipping this dirty brush into the middle of the black, I'm just gonna scoop it out from the edge. Now you don't need a lot. I'm gonna make mine a little bit darker, but you don't need a lot of black to turn that little pile of white into gray. So I'm making mine a little bit darker than I would normally so you guys can see it. So really, we're kind of making a color of like a lead pencil. So we're sketching it out. So if you make your gray too dark, when you go to paint over it, it's going to be harder to paint over the gray, the darker the gray it is. So the lighter the gray, the better. And again, only you have to see it. So as long as you can see it, we're good. So you can, at this point, anytime I'm doing something, it's my way of doing it. Doesn't mean that it's the only way of doing it, okay? So I'm going to sketch with this brush, but feel free to sketch with a smaller brush, bigger commitment. I'm fine with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by figuring out where I want the top of my my horse's head to be, which is probably going to be around here. Okay, I'm just going to put a mark there. Okay. Now, I am going to have the bottom of the shoulder probably around right here. Okay. So now I know my shape has to go from up here to down here. And we can change the shape anytime. We're just kind of starting out. Now, this isn't going to be the head. The head's going to be inside of this shape. Okay, so this is really just the neck and kind of going back into the back of the horse. And I definitely will kind of make this shape a little bit different later. So we're just sketching out. So I like to make 2 little lumps like this. And then the horse has all these muscles, okay? I like to kind of make it lumpy. So it's just kind of like a lumpy line going across. All right? And again, we can change that a million times. Now, we are gonna have the horse's nose over here. So we are going to do, almost like a cup shape, okay? Okay? And then we're gonna have the little mouth under that. And up here, we're gonna have that awesome jaw. So when you're painting a horse, always want to have like a nice, strong jaw. So you can change. See, I'm deciding that maybe I want this a little bit skinnier over here now. So I'm sketching with this brush because I want my jaw to be a little bit more prominent. And don't worry about anywhere that you want to change because we're just going to paint over it. It's not a big deal. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to, this is just so you can kind of get an idea. We're going to do like, almost looks like a comma, but in reverse. Just going to kind of go like that. That's where its nostril's going to be. Okay. And then up here, again, this is just to show you where everything is, okay? Can make a shape like that. Do an eye. Okay. And anytime you want to pause me, absolutely pause me. So we're obviously just sketching out. Okay. So it looks like a big jumbled up mess, and that's totally fine. The eye's going to be a lot bigger than this. We're just kind of sketching it. All right. We're going to have, we're actually going to leave that right now because I don't want to do the feathers until we do the whole background. So what we're going to do now is wash that brush. And, you know, I'd rather it be really dry than really clean. See, I still have some gray at the bottom. I just don't want any water dripping. So just make sure that the metal part here is nice and dry because you don't want to drip water all over your canvas. Okay, so now you can do one of two things. If you have brown, you can use brown, but I'm going to show you how to mix brown. So we're going to take that clean brush and we're going to do about 4 scoops of yellow onto your plate, nice big scoops, okay? And again, remember, take it from the edge. We're going to do a scoop of red, okay? And that's going to turn it orange. So 4 scoops of yellow to 1 scoop of red, and then mix it up. Okay, mix it up real good. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take some blue. Okay, that's a little too much. Mix. You don't need a whole lot of blue. You could always add more. Okay, kind of mix the blue up in there. It's going to look like a muddy orange. And that's what you want. You want like a nice muddy orange. If you get to green, you have too much yellow and blue, so you have to add more red. Okay, now I want you to add some black to that, just a little bit. You could always add more. So we're going for like a chocolatey brown. It might take you a couple tries to get to this, but it's no big deal. You just get used to it after making brown after a while. So now we have a nice chocolate brown, and there's lots of different colors of brown. Okay, yours might not look like this. It doesn't have to get like this. You might have a yellowy brown or a brown that's more on the red side. It's really about getting to a brown that you like. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of white into this, not to make it lighter per se, but just to make it creamier. Okay, so remember to grab it from the edges of your white so you don't dirty up your white. So now it's making it nice and creamy. It's sort of like adding a little bit of creamer to coffee. Okay, so now you have this sort of like nice dark creamy chocolate. So what we're going to do first is we are going to paint the horse in. Okay, so now that I'm going, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I want my horse a little bit smaller. You can change it anytime, okay? But just overlapping with paint. even though we're gonna cover all this stuff, you should still be able to see some of your gray through. Now don't worry about it being transparent because we're gonna do another coat. So I want to keep it nice and thin. Now if you want to change to the bigger brush, you absolutely can if you want. Be a little bit faster, a lot faster probably. But the biggest thing is to make it nice and thin. And even though this is all going to be kind of mushed in together, all these browns, I still kind of want you to go along with the shape that you made, okay? See, I'm going around that. Okay, I'm definitely going to switch to my bigger brush because this is driving me nuts. All right, much better. Plus the bigger brush kind of spreads it out a lot better. And like I said, there's no point where you can't go back and overlap another color. Okay. And what's cool about acrylic paint is that it dries super fast, so it's extremely forgiving. Now the gray lines that we did, honestly, are just a guide. They're very easily changed, so you can, it's just easier to paint when you have like a visual underneath and it's not so scary. It's not like you're going in blind. So see, even though I'm using the same brown, you can still sort of see the path and the different pieces. It's sort of like a big puzzle. Okay. Just gonna go over all this. I'm just going to remind you that you definitely want it to be nice and thin. You don't want like an inch of paint because we want this to be dry for our second coat. Because we're going to hop over here and then come back. So it really just looks like a big old blob when you first start. If you've painted with me before, you know that all my paintings start like that. It's not till the very end we start building up the highlights that things start popping out. So it's really important to stay patient. Okay. It's very hard to do sometimes with painting. So once you have the whole thing painted in, I want you to, paint the edges too. Just wherever the brown's gonna be. We'll do the same when we do the background. It just looks better when you hang it on the wall. Just remember to keep it nice and thin. Same thing on this side. So in the original, I had a lot of turquoises and greens for my background. Now you do not have to do that. Even with the horse, you don't have to make, I know we already started. You don't have to make a gray horse. It's if you want to do another one of these with a different color horse, you absolutely can. So I'm gonna, all the techniques are the same, all the rules that I'm using are the same. You would just use different colors. So say you wanted to do white horse, then we'd be starting this all in gray. And then we'd build up to white. If you wanted a pink horse, we'd start with dark pink and build up to light pink. If you wanted a blue horse, you'd start with dark blue and build up to light blue. So now that we have our horse in there, we're gonna wash that brush and dry it off really well. wash and dry the other brush. Now we are going to mix. I'm going to have mix 2 colors. So, or you can mix 3, or you can mix 1, whatever. I'm going to mix 2. So turquoise is fun. I'm going to take that middle brush and I'm going to do like 3 scoops of blue onto the plate. And again, I'm going to take some yellow, but out of the edge so I don't dirty up all that yellow. I'm going to just mix that in. So it doesn't really look much now, but when I add a couple scoops of white, again from the edge, it's going to lighten it up. Then you'll see the kind of turquoise you'll get. So with turquoise, the more yellow you add, the greener it gets. So I have this turquoise. And if you want like a darker turquoise too, you can just add a tiny bit of black. Like if I add a little bit of black, it'll make it a bit darker. And of course, the more black you add, the darker it's going to get. The more white you add, the lighter it's going to get. So I have this turquoise, and I'm going to actually now, in a separate pile, I'm going to do 2 scoops of yellow. I'm going to mix that up. And there's going to be some excess blue on my paintbrush, so it's going to automatically turn it into this like greeny color. And I'm going to add some white to that, see what happens. Sometimes I don't know what color I'm going for. I just mix, and then I'll see something and be like, ooh, I like it. I'm actually going to mix a little bit more white with this original blue color. Now that I see that green, I kind of want this a little lighter. It doesn't matter that my brush has that green in it, because this has they both have the same colors in them, but just different amounts. All right, so once I get that, a very gooey brush, so I have my 2 colors. Now I'm just going to have a good time painting the background. Now my brush is very gooey, so I'm going to switch to the bigger brush. And I'm going to really spread it out as much as I possibly can. Now we're going to talk about leverage. I'm going to be repeating a lot of stuff if you've painted with me before, but I like to move my canvas around so I can really get into the certain spots that would normally be uncomfortable for me to get into if I kept my canvas vertical. So I'm just gonna, and it's okay if you overlap the brown a little bit, totally fine. You can go back with the brown and overlap it again. Just remember to try to be nice and thin. All right. I prefer you overlap the 2 as we go, just so there's no white spots in it. So once you get to there, then you can dip your brush into the greeny color or whatever other color you have and kind of mix it in. And don't worry if it's not exactly how you want it yet. We're going to do a whole nother coat, so you can even add more colors if you want. You can go from one color to the next. It doesn't have to be, there's no rules. There's suggestions. That's my dog, and you can hear that in the background. working it, but. Okay, and again, feel free to, you don't have to do it exactly like me. You know, you can put more green here. Now, also just a reminder, this is going to be a lot of hair over here, so. What is Daisy doing? What is she doing? Alrighty. So our goal is to get rid of all this white. All right. So again, you want to get the edges. Okay. All right, so that is the undercoat or the wash. It's the foundation of our whole painting. So wash all your brushes off. So now we did that, you should feel this, and this should be dry. Okay, I'm gonna wash this one off. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip of my seltzer water. I am addicted to seltzer water. Okay, so there's no way I'm gonna have enough brown to do a whole nother coat of that. So I'm gonna just mix myself up some more brown. So I'm gonna do 3 scoops of yellow. No, let's do 4 scoops of yellow, sorry. To a little bit of red, and it's gonna turn orange automatically. All right. When you get your orange, you're gonna add some blue. You can always add more blue. You want it to be like a muddy orange. Again, if you got green, that means you have too much yellow and blue. Okay, mine looks like it's on a kind of grainy tinge to it, so I'm gonna add a little bit more red. I was overzealous with the blue second time around. All right, then you're gonna add a little bit of black till it gets to be nice and dark. So you might have a completely different brown now, and if you're fine with the color brown you have, then go for it. I see mine, this brown looks a bit redder than this brown, so all I do is add a little bit more red. And then we're going to add our white. Again, not to get it lighter per se, but to make it a little bit more milky. Okay, perfect. So because we already have a coat up here, it does not matter if this brown matches that brown exactly, because we're doing a whole nother coat, and as long as it's all covered, you're good. So this is all gooky, so I'm going to start with this, and you're going to see it's going to cover so much better. So it won't be as transparent anymore. Okay. If it is a little bit, that's fine. I'm using this brush just to get all that paint off of it. Okay, now I'm going to switch to this brush. Now take your time, because we're also waiting for the background to dry. Now, you don't necessarily have to use the same size canvas as I do, or the shape. If you want to do this on a square canvas, you can. You would just have to change the composition, the layout of it. You know, if you have it on a square, you'll know that you'll have a little bit, you know, less room this way. But you can totally alter the way the picture is accordingly. And that's another reason why I like to sketch it out with my paintbrush first. I like to drag my brush along. So you might have painted with other instructors that don't do anything like what I'm doing, which is, you know, totally fine. You know, everybody has their way of teaching, and everybody has their way of learning. So if you don't like this way, I might not be the instructor for you. So you just have to find somebody that you feel comfortable with painting. There's so many now that, like, there's so many YouTube channels out with instructors, which is really awesome. It's nice to see more and more people painting and being creative. Okay, so I'm gonna do that just to give myself a little bit more leverage. Really spread it out. And also, you know, take your time so we can allow other sections to dry. So this will be the last coat we'll do for the underpainting. And then the rest is just adding darks and lights to this to make it three-dimensional. Okay. Also, the edges kind of give you a little bit of extra drying time. I think it looks better when you hang it on the wall. You don't need to frame it if you don't want to. Okay. cool. What are you doing there, Rosie? So wash those brushes off. Dry them. I think I have enough paint to put another coat on my background. All right. Start up here. Now you can use the bigger brush if you want. It's totally up to you. I'm gonna switch this. Now, I know I'm being annoying, but I'm just reminding you that we're going to be doing all that beautiful hair on top of here, so don't go crazy worrying about, what you're doing in the background here. And here's the time, too, to adjust the shape of your horse if you want to. I'm going to switch to this brush. So it's cool, too, if you want to, just add a little bit of color variation to this. You can take some white and kind of put it on your plate like this and just kind of mix it in a little bit and put some light blue. This part's really fun because it's just very kind of, you don't really have to think about it. You just paint and blend and think about what colors maybe you want in the horse's hair, what color feathers you want. But this is definitely a good practice with blending. And if you do this and you decide you want more colors, there's never a point where you can't do that. The second coat should definitely cover it enough. So you shouldn't see any white. All right. Whoops. Okay. So let's wash these brushes again. And dry them. I think I'm dripping water on my chicken. That sounded weird. Okay. I always have like extra paper towels handy, just in case. Cool. So now we are done with the background and we are going to start to do some highlights on that horse. Now it's really important to make sure these are really, really dry. If you have a hair dryer, that works really great. It only takes like a minute and it dries the whole thing. As you can see, I don't know if you can see it in there, but you can see how it's kind of shiny in some spots. Okay, that's just where it's a little bit damp, but that's fine. All right, so we're gonna take this middle brush, and now we're gonna make a lighter version of this brown. So I'm not gonna change the whole pile to light because I never know when I wanna go back into that original color. So I'm just gonna add some white. Now we're gonna transition into the highlights. So I don't want you to go from dark to light like drastically, okay? We're gonna go just add a little bit of white, so it just has to be noticeably lighter. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna come over here and we're going to do a highlight just till we get used to it. And you don't need a whole lot of paint on your brush. I'm gonna do this highlighted. Okay. Now I want you to kind of keep a line between of darkness so you can see the jaw. So let's go slow, okay? So we have that. Okay. Now we're gonna come down and we're actually gonna just come straight down to here. We'll leave all the rest dark for now. Okay. And I want you to fill that all in. If it's a little damp, that's okay. Just do your best. I'm like already running out of paint here. Try to still keep it thin. It'll have time to dry. That's what's good about these videos too. You guys can kind of pause me, let it dry, then come back. Okay. All right. Now, where the jaw is, we're just gonna kind of keep some of that dark. So let's accentuate that jaw because horses are really known for their jaws. So let's first do that. Okay. And then we're gonna come around to the end of the nose. Remember, don't go, remember we have that lip under there. We'll get there. Okay. Okay, so keep that like that for now. Now we're gonna go do the lip, but I want you to start at the bottom. Now I want you to go up, but I want you to leave a little spot in between. And I want you to leave a spot of darkness in between, but we'll make it darker later. I just want you to keep that. That's the opening of the mouth. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is see this round, if we made a ball at the end of this nose, we're gonna come around and kind of do this very slight S shape. It's very, very subtle. And we're gonna come around here. No, I'm not gonna bother with the inside just yet. I'm running out of this lighter color, so if you run out of it, just add a little bit more white and make some more. Okay, so now we have this spot here, okay? And I want you to make sure you can see it here. So here, up here, is going to be around the eye. And then instead of having a line here, I want you to kind of fade it out into the brown. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of fade it out. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Fade it into the brown. So it's like a little bit of dry brushing. You don't want it to stop abruptly. You want it to kind of fade. And here's why I wanted you to keep some of that original brown. So now you can go back to the original brown if you want and kind of use it to help blend it. Sometimes it's easier to blend if you have that other color coming in and they're overlapping each other. Okay. Awesome. Now we're going to do a V shape just in the corner up here. I just want you to put a little bit of that lighter color. All right. So now this is going to seem like it's really big, but that's because we're going to put the eye inside here. We're just going to kind of make that almond shape. Keep running out of this color. Kind of an almond shape like this. And just paint it all in for now. You're just going to join it with this shape here. Okay. All right, everybody good? Cool. Now we are going to add even more white to that pile, so we want it even lighter than what we just had. Well, if that is my sugar gliders you're hearing. Now they're getting mad at me. All right, so we're gonna come in here and we're gonna do a round shape like that, like the ball of the nose. You're gonna come up. You're gonna paint all that in. So you don't want any solid lines. All right, so you're going to come up here. Then if you want, again, to take the darker, the original dark that you have to help blend this. You can kind of use it like an eraser. Kind of erases, makes that line blend. All right, so now we're going to take, you're still going to have that light color, that lightest color we just used. Now we're going to do a highlight over here. Again, you don't need a lot. And you're just gonna, so when your brush is sort of dry and you don't have a lot of paint on it, it's called dry brushing. So this is gonna be the lightest. You're gonna have a highlight here, here. Now we are going to come back over here and we're going to do so these are just steps to get lighter and lighter. So every time I go lighter, I go less. So even though I'm putting it an even lighter brown in here, I'm doing less. And again, you could always use that darker brown to go in the opposite direction and mix. Like down here, you can use the lighter brown, the darker brown, I'm sorry, to come up into the lighter brown. If you feel like it's getting too dry, absolutely go back. See, I'm going to go back with the darker, I'm sorry, and I'm going to mix it in with the lighter. Okay. So all this is different variations of light and dark. I'm going to do my eyeshadow a little bit lighter here. Maybe make my jawline a little bit lighter. All right, cool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a darker brown. Okay. So I have no brown left, no original brown left. So I'm going to go back and make myself some brown. So this time I did only 3 scoops of yellow, and then I add my red, so I make a nice orange color. Once I have my orange color, I'm going to add some blue. You can always add more blue, remember. Now that we have brown, we're going to add black, but just a little bit more black than we did before. So now you have like a nice, really dark chocolate. So you can adjust all the colors we used. If yours looks on the green side, you had more red. And even though we're making a dark brown, I still want you to use a little bit of white to make it a bit creamy. But we still want this to be the darkest of our darks. Okay. So now that we have that, we're going to come over here, and then we are going to do this shadow under the horse's head. Now remember, we still have that bottom lip mouth part. But don't worry, we'll get to that. Just get everything in there. I like to smooth it out like that. I'm going to put a little bit of that inside here. Put some under the eye a little bit. Oh, hey, I'm sorry, bud. I put some over the eye. Sorry. All right, now we're not gonna use black, but we're gonna take black and we're gonna just add it to a section of that same pile so we have an even darker color. Not too dark, just darker than that. You're gonna go back and get into just the bottom, just the close to the part that's closest to the head. Now here's where you can do the inside of the mouth again if you want. The part that separates the nose from the mouth, and you can just go right under that. Okay. And I like to put some, you don't have to do this part if you don't want to. I like to just put some around there. And let's see. All right, that looks good. Now we're going to take some, well, before we do anything else, just make sure that you are happy with highlights and darks. And if you are, we are going to take this smaller brush. We're going to take some black, and I'm going to put some black on my plate because I never like to use it straight out of the egg carton, but I'm going to add a tiny bit of white to that just to take the edge off so it's a little bit on the grayer side. So you can't, it looks black when we put it on there, but it's really like a gray. So what we're going to do here first is we're going to put the nostrils. So we're going to put a curved line like that, and it's like a backwards comma. Then we're going to go up to the eye. We're going to start with that line. And then you don't, again, anything I do that you don't want to do, you don't have to do, but I made like these eyelashes, so I made a V. Like that. And then I went painted it all in nice and thin. Okay. All right. Cool. So we're going to let that dry a bit. feeling like I kind of want to make the nose a little bit lighter before I go into any sort of detail with anything else. I kind of feel like it needs to have more attention. You, again, don't have to do this at all. And of course, I put black there, so you don't want those to merge yet because that's still wet. So I'll just kind of bring it down here. Okay. Again, you can use your darker brown if you want to help blend that in. Okay. Now while you have that out, you can go back and kind of do a highlight on the mouth if you want to. Okay. You can adjust any kind of shapes you want at this point. And anything you see that you want to change, do that now. I'm just putting another kind of coat because it was a little bit transparency up here. Transparency, is that a word? Whoop, that's light. Okay. All right, so we're biding some time. Make sure you like it before we move on. Okay. And of course, feel free to change anything that you don't like that I'm doing, okay? So we're gonna wash that brush. And we are going to, if you have another paper plate, mine is all icky, so I'm gonna take that dry brush and I'm just gonna take the excess off with white. And we're gonna start doing our feathers up here. So basically, we're gonna do them in white first, okay? So I'm gonna have my feathers kind of coming out in this direction. And they look like bananas. And then you're just gonna paint them in nice and lightly. Because we are gonna make them different colors. But for now, they're gonna be white. Again, make sure it's nice and thin. I'm going to turn this over so I have better leverage. Okay. Now what works for one person might not work for another, so I can't reiterate that enough. If I'm doing something that doesn't work for you, don't do it. So I did this one feather. And now I'm going to do another one right under it. And we'll separate them later, don't worry. It's going to have this one coming out there. And, they're going to be blended together for now, don't worry. We will separate them later. And see what's so cool that the background's already dry. And that's why acrylic paint is so fun, because it dries fast. And when I was in art school, I actually really didn't like acrylic paint because it dried fast. I was doing oils at the time, and I never understood how people liked acrylic paint, but now I'm like, oh my god, I love it because it dries fast. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna let that dry, and we're actually going to figure out what color eyeball you want. So I put just a gray eyeball, but I think mine's gonna be a little bit blue on the blue side this time. So I'm gonna take some blue, and I'm actually gonna add some white to make it light blue. Okay, I don't want mine like piercing blue, but I want it to be more like a Payne's gray, like a grayish blue, like that. But you can do whatever you want. And then all I'm going to do up here is I'm going to make a half circle. Now I'm going to add a tiny bit of white to that. Just like that. I'm just going to put a little bit of white on the bottom. Okay. I'm going to take that darker blue here, and I'm just going to start painting the face. I'm just going to put a little, just for fun, just put a little line there. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my black. I'm going to put just one more coat of that in here. Maybe put like a little bit of a highlight. I feel like you can't really see the bottom. All right, anytime you want to adjust stuff, feel free. I'm going to adjust this. Mine looks a little weird to me. Adjust it accordingly. Okay. Now I'm going to with that black that we just did, I'm going to just put a little bit of white into it, so you don't need you don't need to make it super light. But I'm just going to make the inside of this right at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. Make it a little bit lighter gray. I'll make mine a tad lighter so you can see it. Okay. Wash and dry that brush off really good. Now we're going to dip it into the white again. And we're just going to do a reflection on the eyes. So I'm just going to take that big brush and kind of do that. And then I'm just going to kind of do a little one like that. Okay. I'm afraid you guys can't see that. Make a, oops, sorry, dropped my paper towel on my chicken. Okay. Alrighty. Now let's paint the face a little bit. So I'm going to do blue stripes on the face. So they look a bit turquoise. So I'm going to take some blue, add a little bit of yellow, a little bit of black. So you have this dark turquoise color, and of course add a tiny bit of white. Okay. Now, because the nose is bending, you're going to go and bend right along with it. Okay. Now watch this. Half the pile, you're going to add a little bit of white too. Okay. On here, you're going to just do a little bit of white. Take some black and put it in the other side of the pile, which I don't have a lot of. Probably have to make a little bit more. Okay. And you're just going to add a little bit of, mine's actually not dark enough, of course. You're going to add a little bit of dark to just the part on the left, okay? So that's it. Wash your brush off. Okay, we're almost there. So now you're going to take some red, okay? Put it on your plate. I want you to put a little tiny bit of black in there so it's kind of like a dark red, like a blood red. Now we're just going to do a V, okay? Almost like an arrow at the edges of these, okay? Now we're just going to come in like that. Really, you can go as far down as you want. And feel free to go, bring it down further. Okay. Now you're going to add some white into that. And a big scoop of red. You're going to go over on top of that. let that dry for a bit. All right, now we're gonna switch our brush to this one. We're gonna take some black. Remember the black I told you with a tiny bit of white in there? All right, so what we're gonna do is first, so you can flatten your brush like this and use it like a razor blade. Now I like to use my pinky as a kickstand. What you're gonna do first is you're gonna make a line going down the middle like that. And then you're gonna separate the two feathers like that. You make a line going down this one. So you're gonna outline them too. Don't worry about being neat or anything, because you'll see why. Okay. So now, the one in the back, let's just kind of take a couple inches and color it and paint it in black. So now you are going to put V's like this. You're going to skip one and then do another one, like little arrows on here. Now skip another one. So you want to leave as much white as you have black. Or try to. I know mine's not perfectly perfect. Perfectly perfect. And when I do this one, I try not to line them up so, you know, they're the same. I'll show you when I get there. So let's see, this one I'll have line up where the white is here. Believe it or not, we are almost done. All right. Cool. So now what you want to do is take some pure red and add a tiny bit of white to it. And actually, I'm going to switch the tiny brush. We're going to just make some lines in the red, the dark red. Feel free to overlap the black a bit. You can even go add a little bit more white. Remember, the lighter you go, the less you put. Okay, I like to make a line in the middle here with the lighter color. Oops, wrong way. Okay, there you go. Let's see if you can see it better. So lighter, less. Every time you go lighter, you put less. Okay. All right, cool. So make sure that brush is really dried off. Now what you're going to do is you're going to, because we're going to go to white. Again, you can flatten it on your paper plate. Now you're going to do the same thing with white. You're going to make feathers, kind of. You can overlap the black that you did a bit, and over on the edges, and even the black that you did and the red. Same thing here. Overlap the black, because when you're going to do the black, you're going to overlap the white. So they just merge and keep it simple. Overlap, overlap. Same thing up here. Overlap the red, overlap the black. It looks kind of weird without the black being done, but don't worry, we'll get there. Okay. Now, of course, we're going to add a little bit of white to the black and make a gray. Okay. Now we're going to go on top of the black. Not covering all the black with gray, but just making so you could see lines in it. Maybe make mine a little bit lighter so you can see. I'm afraid you can't see it. Maybe it might be better. So you can overlap the white if you want. Make it a little bit more interesting. Okay. So that's that. Now the final part is the hair. So I made the hair really, really light. Actually, we didn't do the circle around the eye, duh. Sorry about that. So all I took was some regular old red. So I'm going to neutralize it with a tiny bit of green. Okay, so it's just going to take the edge off. It makes it a little tiny bit less bright. Okay, or you can use straight up red. It's totally up to you. Okay, so what I did was I came up and around, and then up like that. Looks pretty cool, huh? Need to add some white to that, make a lighter color. Remember, light or less, so you're not gonna cover everything, but just do some highlights. All right. So for the hair, I have some pinks and purples and yellows, but they're all really, really, really light. So let's start with some yellow. So I am going, where can I even put this? I don't even know. Good thing I have another plate. Wait, I think I do. Maybe not. I'm just gonna put a little bit of yellow. So we'll make really light orange. Here's a spot. Yep. So we're gonna need a lot of white in order to make that light. Okay. So you don't have to make these super light colors if you don't want to. I'm gonna start with this goldy color, okay? So I start with my hair coming, I am having like wavy hair. So I'm just gonna start by putting a few strands. Then I'm gonna have kind of like overlapping, connecting, intertwining. Okay. This part's really fun. Because you can make it your own. Okay. Now that we have gold, I'm gonna add just a little bit of white to that to make it even lighter. Maybe put some light strands in there. I definitely take my time doing this stuff. I know a lot of other people are more committed to that, but all right, so I'm going to take some of the colors that I already have and add some white to them. I'm going to take this pink that I had and just try to make it pretty light and kind of go back in there and find that's really dark still. Okay. So here's where I'll start like overlapping some colors. Having fun. So I'm just going to keep on going to town until I just have tons of hair here. Okay. Now I'll switch to maybe, what do we use yet? Let's see. Purple, red, and blue mixed together. And of course you add some white. I want mine very, very light. And of course you don't have to have yours very, very light. You can do whatever you want. I guess I'll add some purples to all these crazy colors in here. Now I am going to go into it with some of my, let's see, I think I'm going to do really light turquoise. So I'm going to take my old pile of turquoise and add some white. Kind of mesh them together a bit, make it softer. And you don't have to. Ooh, what are you doing? You hungry? You don't have to use the exact same colors or anywhere near the same colors. Totally up to you. And once you're happy with it, then we splatter, which you might want to, if it's a child, you might want to ask your parents. So all you do with splatter paint is you put some white onto a paper plate and add some water. I like to add a couple little scoops of water, mix. It doesn't matter if it turns into, because my water's really dirty. And I just kind of made some marks like that first. Try to be as random as possible. With these. And of course you could use your tiny brush if you want. All right, so once I have that, then I'm going to splatter. You might want to practice on your table first. Oh, my chicken's ooh, she bit me. What are you doing? I know you like this. Am I gonna get white speckles on you? And you can go put them up here. And only you know when you're done. So you definitely want to test the consistency of this on your table first. Or maybe opt to go outside and do it. All right, and that's it. So this is our awesome tribal stallion, and I hope you had fun. Thank you for joining me, and see you next time. Bye.